Hello everyone, it's time for an introduction to Old Testament. Hello everyone. Last time we spoke about the heart of protecting yourself and the heart for yourself and how that casts out the Word of God and casts Jesus out. And so how that was expressed in the story of Saul. So today, together, I want to speak to you about Jonathan and Abiathar. So during the last Hong Kong camp, Pastor Oksu Park, he talked about the butler and the baker, and we listened to the word about that. And those words remained much inside of my heart. And see, the pastor, as he spoke about the parable of the butler and the baker, this butler, see, only the wine, Jesus Christ, he took only that forth with him. But the baker, aside from the body of Jesus Christ, the bread, he took all manner of baked meats in addition to that. And so ultimately he was destroyed and killed. And we heard about these things. And it was through these words, what he said was that in the heart of the baker, Satan constantly puts a heart that he's lacking in some way. So Satan tells them, hey, you have sinned against the Pharaoh. Do you think this bread is going to be enough? You have to bring a little bit more. You have to take a little bit more to please the Pharaoh. And so that's what you have to do, to take other things out. And so that's what the baker had in his mind. And he was ultimately destroyed and killed. And we heard about that. And as I heard these words, inside of my heart, even me, I am living a life just like the baker. Satan deceived the baker and lives and works among us today, even in our hearts, inside of us. See, there's Jesus Christ, and this Jesus Christ, no matter what we do, is really enough for us. But continuously, we have the heart that we're not enough, that we lack in some way. So if we try a little bit harder, so even in my own ministry, why don't you witness a little bit harder? Why don't you do a little bit harder? Hey, Jesus does it too, but you have to do it as well. So the devil puts his heart inside of you endlessly. And that's what I discovered. See, early this year, in South America, Peru, Paraguay, and Brazil, we had the World Camp at those places. And as I participated at the World Camp, we had to decide many, many things. But I'm not good at, these kind of works, and I'm not good at making decisions. So often I postpone my decisions. And if you make a decision, you have to take responsibility. So I wanted to remove myself from that. But the heart that God gave me is, hey, Jesus Christ is inside of you. The butler had bread, and the baker had the wine. In the same way, there's Jesus Christ inside of you. And this Jesus Christ, no matter what situation you meet, He is enough for you. Now, no matter what you go through, no matter what you have to do, it's Jesus Christ alone inside of you. He is enough to take care of all these things. So as God gave me this heart, when I had to make a decision, inside of my heart, what if I make a mistake? What if I make the wrong decision and the camp turns out bad? See, these hearts continuously grew inside of me, but these words defeated those thoughts that I had. And it was at times that I made decisions and everything, but it's not that I made the right decision, but God who made these decisions work out beautifully. We were able to hold the camp in an amazing way. So today I want to speak about Jonathan. Jonathan had a spiritual sense. And also in his heart, he had the eyes to clearly see the will of God. And so in Jonathan's heart, he had faith. And so together with his man in charge of his chariot, he ran towards the Philistines. And Jonathan, as he listened to his father's word, Instead of having, his own self-interest in mind, he said, yes, I should not be where David defeats my father and takes the throne. That should not happen. See, that's not what he had, his own self-interest. Instead, he knew that it was the will of God for David to be established. And different from Saul, Jonathan accepted that will into his heart, and he helped David. And when we look at all these different things, we can see that Jonathan was very admirable. And so, how did Jonathan's life end? Didn't Jonathan's life end together with Saul? And in Jonathan's life, God was no longer able to work in his life. See, Jonathan was really a spiritual person, and Jonathan really loved David. Jonathan even had faith. He honored God. But why could Jonathan's life only end with Saul, pitifully? See, if you look in the Bible, it speaks about Jonathan when he met David. So although David and Jonathan meet together, ultimately, what does Jonathan do? He ultimately ends up returning to Saul. Yes, David, you're right. My father is going to kill you. And although he does share his heart with David, where did his heart ultimately return to? It returned back to Saul. So as I told you about it last time, Satan made up all the different systems in this world. And so within the systems that this world flows in, Satan makes it so that our hearts can only follow that. So what does this world tell us? Hey, try harder. Work harder. If you don't want to lag behind others, you have to work harder. You have to work even harder than that. So continuously, Satan puts these hearts inside of the hearts of people. See, I have a son, and last September, he entered into kindergarten for the first time. And it was at that school, what did they teach my son? Study hard. Don't fight with your friends. Make sure you do your homework. Don't skip school. So from kindergarten to elementary school, middle school, high school, college, and when he graduates high school and college, he goes into work. So when you get a job, what do they tell you? Try harder. In order to, overcome your competitors, in order for you to succeed, you have to work harder than others. See, that is what Satan has formed in the hearts of people. But everyone, this world tells us we have to work hard. We have to try harder. And when other people sleep 5 hours, you have to sleep only 4 hours. And you have to do even more things than them. You have to do better than them. This is a system that the world has educated us in until now. But what does the world of God tell us? Do you know? Hey, it's okay if you don't do well. It's okay if you lack. It's okay if you're weak. All you need to have is Jesus. So it's okay if you can't live a spiritual life. It's okay if you can't read the words of the Bible constantly. It's okay if you can't witness well. But inside of your heart, all you need to have is Jesus. In your heart, all you need is to be inside of that grace. That is what the Bible teaches us. So all of you who are watching this cyber theology school, the lectures, I believe that you were all born again in your heart. So everyone, how did you become born again? You try harder. You keep the law well. You serve God well. You do well. Is that how you became born again? Everyone, there is not one person here who became born again in that manner. That is not how you become born again. How do you become born again? By the grace of Jesus. And if you accept what Jesus did inside of your heart, as you do that, you become free in your heart from that sin. And that's how you became born again, right? The Bible tells us this. Let's look in one place in the Bible. Galatians chapter 5, verse 4. It tells us this. Christ is become of no effect unto you. Whosoever of you are justified by the law, you are falling from grace. So what Galatians chapter 5, verse 4 tells us is that those of us who are justified by the law, Christ has no effect on you and you are fallen from grace. So trying to become righteous through the law, what is that? It's you trying to keep the law well. You trying to do something, you laboring, you trying to be good. And through that, you become clean and you try to stand righteously in front of God. That's what this is talking about. But everyone, the Bible is not telling us whether or not to keep the law well. If you're trying to become righteous inside of the law, whether you do well or not, already you are what? Christ has become of no effect unto you, and you are fallen from grace. So why could the baker only die? He can only be put to death in the Bible. Why? Because he did not wait for grace. He wanted to bring something in front of the Pharaoh. In other words, the king reflects God. And so, in other words, he was trying to be righteous within the context of the law. And that was the heart that he had. And that is why he was destroyed and he was put to death. But everyone, we receive salvation by grace. If it's not by grace, then there's no way we can enter the path of salvation. We were all saved by grace. But even though we got saved through grace, when we enter into the church, what is it that leads our hearts? I'm a pastor, As a pastor, I meet many brothers and sisters. And we receive salvation by grace, but in my heart, what kind of heart do I have? Since I received grace, I was saved, I should, live a diligent spiritual life in front of God. Yes, I should, do something. I should, witness harder. I should do something. So in our hearts, it flows towards the law again. Of course, it's not that we're trying to, keep the law and become righteous and trying to stand perfectly in front of God, but still, even I, as a minister, I see my own weaknesses. Yeah, that's right. I should read the Bible more. I should do better. I should have this kind of a heart. Oh, I should sacrifice for the gospel. Saying that, and again, what we learned in the world, trying harder and doing well. With these things, once again, our hearts go back to those thoughts. And so at the New York church, where I minister, there's a brother named Peter Park. And this brother, his personality is very rugged. But when we had our first Madison Square Garden conference, he drives big tractor trailers. And within his life, he drank, he smoked, he did drugs, and without that, there wasn't much to talk about. On top of that, guns maybe, right? But he would drink and smoke and do drugs, and he, shook his gun around, waved his gun around. I don't know if he shot anybody, but so that's all he knew. But you know what the amazing thing is? It was during the Madison Square Garden conference that after he got saved, all in one moment, he stopped everything. See, he didn't quit those things on his own. God allowed him, made him to quit those things. And so everyone, after he was saved, drinking liquor, smoking, drugs, guns, he never touched any of those things again. And in the Lord, he's such a precious brother. And this brother has a wife. She's not saved. And so because of that, he would occasionally come to me and tell me about his wife. He says very rough things about her. Pastor, my wife. He doesn't even call her my wife. He says, this woman, or, this being is not saved. I just want to throw her out of my house. What should I do? It's a 2-story house, Should I kick her out of my house? Oh, she's a complete devil. And then recently, his wife opened up her heart towards our church. And so it was a Sunday, and he was rejoicing so much and said, Pastor, that being, that person, her, she opened her heart, and she wants to have fellowship with you. Pastor, can you come to my house on Tuesday? And no matter how busy I am, I'll put everything aside and I need to go to their house. No matter how busy I am, no matter what happens, I'm going to go. And so, on Tuesday, I was on the way to their house. And in my heart, I was a little burdened. Why? Because this brother, he's very impatient. And I thought, how disappointed would he be if she didn't receive salvation? And so I thought in my heart, right? Oh, tonight, I better have good gospel fellowship. Now, how do you have good gospel fellowship? So this person is interested, and sometimes she doesn't care, sometimes she's like this, sometimes she's like that. But what should I preach to her then? See, on my own, I started thinking, right? Okay, the fellowship has to go well. But God, inside of my heart, He gives me an uncomfortable heart. That's right. It's not bad to prepare in advance and preach the gospel. So as you prepare the word, you think about what to preach. These are important things. But inside of my heart, this heart to do well, the kind of heart was inside of me. So God says, hey, I'm inside your heart. And the heart for you to do well, that is a heart that the baker had. If I have this heart, then God will not work through me. I'd better put that heart down. So while reading the Bible, I covered it up. Okay, this evening, the heart that God gives me, whether she gets saved or not, that heart that God gives me, I'd better express that heart. So I went, and he sat down. And inside of my heart, the word that God gave me, that's what I preached. Doing better and leading this person to salvation or not. It was no longer like that. But because God is alive inside of me, the heart that God gives me. So everyone happened. What do you think happened? She didn't get saved. But as I left her home, I rejoiced. Do you know why I was happy? Today, I didn't do it. There is God inside of me who did it. So whether she gets saved or not, I felt so free. If I did it and she didn't receive salvation, then I would feel guilty. How come I'm not good at doing this? That's the heart I would have had. But today, clearly, I could see that I did not say a thing. That's what God did. He's working inside of me. So that's why the Lord worked inside of my heart. A while ago at the Manhattan Center Conference, she came to the post-conference and I heard that she received the assurance of salvation. And so God is working inside of her heart and saved her. So I listened to the Pastor Park's testimony at the Gangnam Church. It's going to be torn down. It's not going to be torn down. There were so many things going back and forth. And Pastor, he spoke this one time saying that I will not work in this Gangnam Church. If I use even a little bit of my own humanly methods, and this building will be torn down, how ashamed I will be. So I will put down all my humanly methods away and rely only on the Lord. Even if it does get torn down, I'll be thankful in front of the Lord, and I can be bold. So the Lord is working among us, and He's living among us, but we continuously try to walk our own paths. And we try to do well ourselves. And because I am a gospel preacher, when I meet people, I have fellowship with them. Oh, I'd better, make sure this person gets saved. I'd do better. I'd have to do better. Preach better words. These kinds of hearts in Galatians, it tells us, Christ is become of no effect unto you. Christ is become no effect unto you. Whoever of you are justified by the law, you are fallen from grace. Everyone, Jonathan, he was a person who knew David. He knew God. He loved David. And in his humanly love, his heart was not being led by humanly things. So his father, needs to be king for him to be king, the beauties of the world, his heart was not drawn to those things. But Jonathan, ultimately, even though he had many good things in him, he came to David, and he always ended up returning back to his own way. He ended up returning back to Saul. So the life of Jonathan, he was a really great man. And he had faith, and the Holy Spirit worked in him. He was a really good person, but God could not work through him. That is why he, together with Saul, they live and die a pitiful death. So inside of your heart, what kind of thoughts do you have? You receive salvation through grace, but aren't you running with your own efforts and with your own zeal in your heart? Isn't that how you're moving forward? When your zeal and your effort stand in front of you, then you get cut from grace. You have to know that. Today, I spoke about Jonathan and Abiathar. So who is Abiathar? See, I told you last time, David went to Nob and received the help of Ahimelech. And from Ahimelech, he receives bread, and he receives a sword of Goliath. And then Doeg, who is the chief shepherd of Saul, reports this to Saul. So Saul says to Ahimelech, "Hey, Ahimelech, how can you help David?" "Oh, King Saul, you established him, and isn't he your son-in-law? So is it only at this time that I inquired of the Lord for him? Do not put this upon me." So with that, Saul makes Doeg kill the 85 priests that wear the linen ephods and all the people at Nob. And so Saul, he commits this evil. So who is Abiathar then? Abiathar is priest Ahimelech's son. And among them, they all died, and only Abiathar remained alive. He ran away. So where should Abiathar go then? Abiathar can only go to David. But you see, Abiathar in the Bible, there were no great works of God, that were completed through him. See, some spiritual things do appear through him. There wasn't much of that in the Bible. But everywhere in the Bible, 1 Samuel 22 verse 33, it says this, "Abide thou with me, fear not, for he that seeketh my life seeketh thy life. But with me thou shalt be in safeguard." Here, as he saw that Abiathar ran to him, David says to Abiathar, "Hey, if you're not Abiathar, you be with me. Those who seek my life," in other words, he's talking about Saul, "that seeketh thy life." And so he's talking about Saul, right? Saul wants to call Abiathar. Saul also wants to kill David. So Abiathar has nowhere to go except to David. So David says, "Those who seek your life seek my life. So if you're with me, you will be in safeguard." See, Abiathar, he was not very spiritual. And through him, the power of God appearing, there was nothing like that. But Abiathar, as he was together with David, his life completely changed. See, in David's many hardships, ultimately, he became king, right? And that's why when David is in the seat of king, he receives a glorious position. But what happened to Abiathar? Abiathar as well went with David. When David ate, Abiathar also ate. Abiathar was glorified together with David. When he was protected, David was protected along with Abiathar. When David was glorified, Abiathar was also glorified. See, the important thing is that doing something well, being great is not important. But my heart walking together with the heart of God, And when my heart, my effort, or my heart, so instead of returning to zeal, if I am within the grace of God, that is the blessing and grace to me. So everyone, as I saw Abiathar, I could see that exactly is how I felt. Abiathar was in the family of a priest. He was a son of a priest. And as they give offerings, they serve God. But who were they under? They were under Saul, weren't they? Right, everyone. Inside of Saul, working for Saul. That's the kind of people they were. But in the life of Abiathar, one day, a great plague comes upon him. And because of that plague, not only is Abiathar's father put to death, but his uncles. Why? Because they're all priests, Levites, right? They're all relatives, uncles and grandpas, and they're all in the same father, in the same family. He lost all of his family, his cousins, his friends, his younger siblings, his brothers, sisters. And so everything of Abiathar's life is lost at that point. But through this, Abiathar becomes freed from Saul and becomes one with David. And that is what's amazing. God at times, through Christians, and even through my life at times, see God, He gives me pain. And sometimes He gives me suffering. And sometimes despair inside of my life. But God, by trying harder, by doing well, that world that I'm living in, that's what Saul represents. The efforts of man, the zeal of man, the law, the flesh. But then when God gives me pain and suffering in my life, God rids my heart of believing in myself. And then He unites my heart with God. See, and by the grace of God, I was able to study abroad in America. So as I studied in November 1998, I returned to Korea. It was at that time when I was returning back to Korea in my heart that I had a lot of complaint, a lot of hatred and pain. If I were to say all the bad things, then that's what I had in my heart. At that time, I really hated God. Of course, I did the wrong things, and I tried to run towards my dream, but God crumbled that down. And then I went to the army. And when I went to the army, I said to myself, once I get discharged, I'm never going to believe in God. God just does whatever He wants. See, that's the heart that I had. But God, by crumbling down everything that I had, God became my God. And so I thought, if I just believe in God, I ended up just serving the flesh, and I lived for myself. And my heart lived through my own efforts. But then God moved that heart, and He made my heart one with God. And through these things, as I became one with the Lord, I received many blessings. But was it because I did well? The reason I was able to lecture to you today is not because I did well. And so the reason I'm able to stand in front of you and speak about God is not because I did well. God led my life after I became one with Him. So just like Abiathar, I'm lacking. I don't have spiritual senses. I don't know anything. But because I am together with Jesus, God leads my life so beautifully. Jonathan was great, but he was together with Saul, and he was destroyed with Saul. Abiathar, although he lacked, when he was together with David, he received grace. And so that's what we shared today through the Bible. I will end today's lecture. Thank you.